That super shady subpoena, and Ron is back to discuss.
The unfolding drama surrounding Blake Lively's legal battles has taken a turn into murky territory, revealing a web of questionable tactics, corporate maneuvers, and media manipulation. At the heart of this saga is a mysterious lawsuit filed by a company called Vanson Inc., which has raised eyebrows for its vagueness and apparent connection to Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds. The case, coupled with allegations of a coordinated smear campaign against actor and director Justin Baldoni, has sparked widespread speculation about Lively's motives and the ethics of her legal strategy. As new details emerge, the story reads like a Hollywood thriller, complete with ghost companies, fake subpoenas, and a carefully orchestrated media blitz. Let's dive into the timeline, the players, and the implications of this unfolding scandal. The story begins on September 27th, 2024, when a peculiar lawsuit was filed in a New York court under the name Vanson Inc. versus John Doe's 1-10. On its surface, the case seemed like a legal enigma, vague, nameless, and lacking any clear target. The complaint accused a group of unidentified individuals of violating corporate loyalty laws, but it failed to specify who these individuals were, what they did, or when the alleged violations occurred. To legal experts, this lack of detail was a red flag. Lawsuits typically require clear identification of defendants and specific allegations, but this one seemed to exist in a vacuum, like a placeholder designed for something other than winning in court. As public curiosity grew, attention turned to Vanson Inc., the company behind the lawsuit. Court documents and public records revealed that Vanson was not just any corporation. It was tied directly to Blake Lively, whose legal married name, Blake Reynolds, appeared as the CEO, secretary, and CFO of the company. Further digging uncovered another connection. The address listed for Vanson Inc. matched the home address of Ryan Reynolds, Lively's husband and a Hollywood heavyweight in his own right. This raised questions about the couple's involvement in what appeared to be a legal shell game. Why would a high-profile actress and her A-list husband be linked to a company filing such a nebulous lawsuit? The answer, according to legal analysts and insiders, lies in the lawsuit's true purpose: subpoena power. The Vanson Inc. case, while lacking substance, granted Lively's team the ability to issue subpoenas, allowing them to demand private communications, emails, and other sensitive materials without immediately tipping off their targets. This tactic, often referred to as a straw lawsuit, is a controversial maneuver used to gather information under the guise of legitimate legal action. In this case, the subpoena was aimed at one person in particular: Stephanie Jones, a former publicist who had worked with Justin Baldoni until August 2024. Jones, who was married to Jason Juarez, a senior partner at WME, the talent agency representing both Lively and Reynolds, became a central figure in the controversy. In October 2024, just weeks after the Vanson lawsuit was filed, Jones received a subpoena demanding access to communications from a single phone belonging to Jennifer Abel, another member of Baldoni's PR team. Strikingly, no other phones or individuals from the PR firm were targeted, suggesting a highly specific and deliberate focus. Jones complied with the subpoena without objection, handing over texts, emails, and other materials that would later become the backbone of a damaging media narrative against Baldoni. This move raised serious ethical questions. Jones, as Baldoni's former publicist, was bound by a non-disclosure agreement, NDA, that prohibited her from sharing confidential communications. A subpoena from a legitimate lawsuit could theoretically override an NDA, but the Vanson case's flimsy foundation cast doubt on the subpoena's legitimacy. Legal experts noted that if Jones had believed the subpoena was improper, she could have challenged it in court or notified Baldoni, giving him a chance to contest it. Instead, her swift compliance suggested either complicity or a personal agenda. Some speculated that Jones, who left Baldoni's team abruptly in August, may have been motivated by a grudge or a desire to curry favor with powerful clients like Lively and Reynolds through her husband's agency. The timeline of events only deepens the suspicion. On December 19, 2024, the Vanson Inc. lawsuit was quietly dropped. No hearings, no defendants, no resolution. It simply vanished, as if it had served its purpose and was no longer needed. The very next day, December 20th, Blake Lively filed a high-profile complaint with the California Civil Rights Department, CRD, accusing Baldoni of misconduct and defamation. The timing was no coincidence. The Vanson lawsuit had allowed Lively's team to gather private communications, which were then selectively curated and leaked to the New York Times. The resulting article, published shortly after the CRD filing, painted Baldoni as a villain, relying heavily on the subpoenaed texts and emails to craft a damaging narrative. The New York Times' involvement added another layer of controversy. The outlet cited the subpoenaed materials in its reporting, seemingly unaware that they may have been obtained through a questionable legal maneuver. Legal analysts argue that if the Times had known the full context of the Vanson lawsuit, it might have hesitated to publish the story, as using illegally obtained materials to shape a public narrative crosses ethical boundaries. The article's impact was immediate and devastating, tarnishing Baldoni's reputation and fueling a media firestorm. For Lively's team, it was a carefully timed PR coup, designed to bolster her CRD complaint and cement her narrative as a victim. But the cracks in Lively's strategy began to show. Brian Friedman, Baldoni's attorney, was quick to call out the Vanson lawsuit for what it was: an end-around to skirt legal processes and obtain confidential documents without proper notice. Friedman's accusation, echoed by legal experts, pointed to a potential abuse of process, a serious charge that could have far-reaching consequences for Lively and her legal team. Under civil law, parties are required to notify individuals whose private communications are being subpoenaed, a step Lively's team allegedly skipped. This omission, combined with the lawsuit's vague and possibly fraudulent nature, has led to calls for state bar investigations into the conduct of Lively's lawyers, particularly the firm Manette, which handled the case. The fallout could be severe. If a judge determines that the Vanson lawsuit was a sham designed to manipulate the legal system, the evidence obtained through its subpoenas could be deemed inadmissible. Without that evidence, Lively's CRD complaint would lose much of its foundation, potentially collapsing under its own weight. Additionally, Lively and her legal team could face civil sanctions, including monetary penalties and public reprimands. For Manette, the stakes are even higher. If found complicit in filing a fake lawsuit, the firm risks disciplinary action from the state bar, which could damage its reputation and ability to represent high-profile clients. The involvement of Vanson Inc. itself is another point of contention. Public records show that the company had been inactive for 11 years before being resurrected for this lawsuit. Its sudden reappearance, coupled with its ties to Lively and Reynolds, suggests it was little more than a legal front, a dormant entity reactivated to serve as a tool for Lively's vendetta. The fact that the company's address matched Reynolds' home and that its legal filings were handled by the same firm representing Lively and Reynolds in their broader lawsuit against Baldoni only reinforces the perception of a coordinated effort. As the case moves forward, all eyes are on Lively's upcoming 7-hour deposition, where she will face tough questions about Vanson Inc., the subpoena, and her team's tactics. Her legal team is expected to file protective orders to shield her testimony from public view, but in a courtroom, transparency often trumps celebrity status. If the deposition exposes further evidence of misconduct, it could unravel Lively's carefully curated image as a relatable, altruistic star. The court documents, many of which are already public, paint a damning picture of a calculated campaign to discredit Baldoni, and legal insiders predict that Friedman will use them to build a compelling case of defamation and abuse of process. For Baldoni, the scandal represents both a professional and personal blow. The New York Times article, fueled by selectively edited communications, has left his reputation in tatters, and he was never given a chance to respond before the story broke. Friedman is now preparing to counterattack, stitching together the timeline of the Vanson lawsuit, the subpoena, the media leak, and the CRD complaint to argue that Lively orchestrated a retaliatory smear campaign. If successful, this argument could not only dismantle Lively's case, but also position Baldoni to pursue his own legal claims against her and her team. The broader implications of this saga extend beyond the courtroom. Lively, who has built a brand on authenticity and empowerment, risks alienating fans and industry peers if her tactics are exposed as manipulative. The involvement of Reynolds, whose name appears in court records tied to Vanson Inc., adds another layer of intrigue, raising questions about his role in the controversy. Meanwhile, the New York Times' unwitting role in amplifying the leaked materials has sparked a debate about journalistic ethics and the responsibility of media outlets to verify the origins of their sources.